Hey, Friday, Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Facebook, YouTube Live. How about you? It's Dialogue with Dozy. How you doing? You got your boy. I'm flying solo tonight with a very, very exciting show. We're going to have some fun tonight. You know what we're going to do? We are going to examine America's top 10 tourist attraction. This is as determined by the website Time Out. The website is Time Out, and Time Out is giving us the top 10 tourist attractions in all of the United States of America. You got to hop in and see this show tonight. Be able to give some personal conversation about the 10, and when we finish the 10, we're gonna look at 5 because their list consisted of 23, and we're going to take 5 and call them honorable mention after we count down the top 10. So you know what? These are the top 10 tourist attractions in the United States of America. So we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right to the countdown. Hey, count down with your boys. See if you know where we're going with this top 10 list. Number 10 is a surprise. Would have thought that it would have ranked higher on the board, but it is a surprise, and it is just about 2.5 hours up the road, up the Florida Turnpike and I-4, and it's Disney World. It's Disney World out in Lake Buena Vista, Florida. Yeah, there they go. Mickey and what's Mickey Mouse, and I can't think of her name. Anyway, the Mouse guys. Okay, Minnie and Mickey and Minnie Mouse, that's her name, and all of the Mouseketeers. Disneyland. Disney has several properties there in Orlando, several different pieces to the attraction. It competes. When that one little mouse went to Orlando in the early 70s, because I graduated in high school in 74, and we were one of the second or third groups of graduates that went to Disney World for a graduation. We didn't call it grad night because we went during the day. We went down from Jayville, went to Mickey Mouse, and went to Disneyland and came back. Yeah, it opened in 1971, and had been to Disneyland out in LA, but Disney World was right in our own backyard. It sees about 58 million guests each year. Let me tell you, this list that was picked by the website Time Out was just updated on August the 12th of this year, August the 12th of 2024. So it is supposedly an up-to-date list of the top. We're looking at the top 10 tourist attractions here in America as best they can calculate it. Top 10 tourist attractions in America. Number 10, surprisingly, Disney World, the whole Disney Corporation out there in Lake Buena Vista. Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios. They have a Animal Kingdom, and there's one other piece of the Disney properties out there. Of course, as you know, Disney owns the conglomerate, the ABC, ESPN, and all of those entertainment venues are all a part of the Disney family that's owned. In fact, you pass on your way out in Lake Buena Vista, on the way to the Disney attractions, you pass by the ESPN athletic fields, and you actually pass by the complexes where in 2020 during the pandemic, the NBA brought their teams in and finished up. That's all along out there on 192 heading to Disneyland, Disney World. Don't say Disneyland, that's out in California. Disney World, the top 10 tourist attraction in America. How about it? Bet you couldn't figure out what that we would have thought it was a little bit higher. Number 9 is actually, and I don't know how they go about determining who visits there because it's a landmark, and you almost could pull over any stretch of it. And I'm sure they have various places that are neat lookouts and stuff like that where they could chronicle or count the number of people that come in. But the number 9 selected one was the Grand Canyons. The Grand Canyons actually out in Arizona, and the Grand Canyons that was Uh, it's estimated that it came on the scene 5 million years ago. It's right off the Colorado River and borders the Arizona desert. And I think we last passed through there when I was traveling with my daughter Kimberly back to Ohio, where she did her internship. And we passed through the Grand Canyons probably pretty rapidly. But our fun was in 1967 as a child to have gone through there. And along that trip to California with our cousins, our parents, and my dad and his brother and our cousins, actually did a rock collection the whole ways out to California. We actually started the journey from Tampa. And the Grand Canyons was where I got some of my better rocks. I wonder where those rocks are now. I wonder if Anthony and Kim might would know, my brothers now. Just joking. Had a great rock collection from the Grand Canyons. That's in California. I mean, that's in Arizona. A very, very picturesque scene, as a lot of these attractions are a natural wonder, and you will certainly enjoy traveling out, passing through the Grand Canyons. While you're out that way, go through the legendary Highway 66. A lot of that is, believe it or not, still two-lane travel, and you would just enjoy passing through and seeing that natural. Our picture just gets a snapshot of what it really looks like. That's the Grand Canyons. That's number 9 on our list. This is Time Out the website, and we're following it. And we monitored several outlets, news magazines, travel venues like AARP, AAA, and other ones. And Newsweek, Time Magazine. We looked at all of these sources, and this was the one that the staff here at the Dialogue liked the best, and we came up. And number 8, if you don't know this one, we won't hold this one against you. Since as calculated in August of 2024, August, telling my date, talking about 19, as calculated as of August the 12th of this year. This was number 8 on our list. It's actually the Smithsonian Museums in Washington, D.C. These are the Smithsonian Museums in Washington, D.C. And what you're looking at is an aerospace display in one of the museums. Now, the Smithsonian, you may or may not know, is one of the larger museums in the world, not just in America. It's one of the larger museums in the world. And it has, it's located there in our nation's capital. And one of its, and it's not just one museum. That's why we said Smithsonian Museums. And I should have posted the labels, but it's the Smithsonian Museum that you're looking at, one of the aerospace displays. The National Air and Space Museum is one of the museums. The National Museum of Natural History is one of them. The National Museum of American History, and there are many more. And of course, the one that a lot of us have spent a lot of time looking at, and it's one of the latter ones, it's it's the National Museum of Black History, African American History. It is a fascinating museum. I last visited it in 2019, I think it was, with my mother and our late Aunt Pat. We made a whisk tour through there. My mom was in the chair. We rolled her through there real quick. We got there with about 45 minutes to closing, and we had done that as a family trip in 2016. In fact, it was election night. How do you know that? Because while we were there, my son-in-law, who had all he could take after seeing one of the attractions, stepped out, and who did he see passing by on their way to the White House to go and sit down with 44 and do the traditional passing of the baton and getting to look around the White House? It was 45. Yeah. So the National Museum of African American History is one of the many museums that's a part of the beautiful Smithsonian museums there in Washington, D.C. And that museum is complete. It's everything. It has like 6 floors, if I'm not mistaken, 6 or 7 floors, and each floor represents an era of African American history in America. And if you can get past the third or fourth floor and see the inhumanity to humans that was done during slavery and the Middle Passages and all of that, if you can get past the 60s, the one that really got me was the Emmett Till. They had the original casket that he was put in before his body was exhumed, and he was buried in another one. And seeing Mimi Till, his mother, who just left us a few years ago, actually crying on the video. That's when I couldn't take it anymore. But that museum is fascinating. It's awesome. But the Smithsonian Museums in Washington, D.C. Hey, we're moving pretty fast. I probably better slow down. Just a little personal thing. Madam Producer, she's probably a little gun shy, but I'm hoping she'll come on because she has been to most of these sites with us. We've been blessed to do every last one of these sites. We're going to actually look at 15 sites, but we're focusing in on the top 10 sites in America. After the heaviness of last week's show, which centered in on National Suicide Prevention Month, we looked at suicide. And if you didn't see that show, please go back and look at least the last 15 minutes so that you can view some of the telltale signs of a person who may be bent towards suicide, or it'll tell you give you some tips on how to live as a grieving family member or friend of a suicide victim, or it has resources for you to seek assistance. That was last week's dialogue with Dozell, and it was a heavy show, and I did it by myself, and so we really wanted to do something fun tonight, but we would not have been responsible as an outlet of journalism had we not dealt with that show. This is a fun show. We're looking at the top 10 tourist attractions in the United States of America. We could have chosen a list of top 10 visited states. We could have looked at the top 10 tourist attractions in all of the world, and we will do that show one time. We could have looked at so many different components of tourism, but in the four corners of the United States of America, there are some pretty awesome places to visit, and many of these places, if you can get there, you don't have to spend money to actually enjoy the attraction. I like those kind of places, right? Because you still got to get there, you got to have a place to stay, you got to eat, so forth and so on. But we want to just bring some of these to your attention and hopefully whet your appetite that it would be something that you would want to be a part of, something that you would want to see, some places you want to visit. Oh, we're moving quite swiftly here tonight. Let's push on to the seventh attraction. The seventh most visited attraction, according to the Time Out website, is the Las Vegas Strip. The Las Vegas Strip. Now, I don't know if this trip, if this picture actually does it justice, but it's immortalized as one of you've seen it in endless movies, possibly one of the funniest, one of the latest hit movies that it was featured in was the Hangover. All 3 episodes. Let me see. If we look close enough, we might see the building where Mikey and them left the boy, where he was there while they were going through all those escapades with Mike Tyson and everybody, with the tiger and all of that. And they discovered they were looking for him, and he was there all the time, asleep on the top of that building. But the Las Vegas Strip, if you could see the marquees, there's possibly nothing more fascinating to just travel down the Las Vegas Strip at night and see all the marquees, see all the big name entertainers that are in town at the time that are entertaining there. And many of those entertainers do years, and they make a 2-year commitment or a 3-year commitment, and you'll see those names, and then you'll see ones who have a lesser time period. They may be there for 6 weeks or something like that. But that's the Las Vegas Strip, and it is an awesome tourist attraction. It's number 7 on our list. We're giving the Time Out website, we're giving them some free advertisement tonight. That's timeout.com. They put together the best list of top 10 tourist attractions here in America as the staff here at Dialogue with Dozell selected. So the Las Vegas Strip is full of lights. That's one of the things that you'll enjoy, seeing the lights at night. Of course, you got what makes it so cheap is that, you know, they're going to make their money off of you gambling in those hotels and the casinos and those kind of things. The buffets, which are legendary. The food's overrated. But one of the other fascinating things, and as a preacher, I don't know how I feel about that, but all those wedding chapels where people get involved in those instant marriages. That's the Las Vegas Strip in Las Vegas, Nevada. The movie The Godfather featured the Strip as Vegas itself was becoming a major tourist attraction. All of that desert space and land, and it was soon to be cultivated as a Strip. Hey, Las Vegas as a city has grabbed all of Oakland's sports teams almost. The Oakland A's are slated to move there in a few years. They just played their last homestand in the Oakland Alameda Coliseum. The Oakland Raiders, who off travel, but they have landed in Vegas, and they're in a beautiful stadium. Allegiant is currently called Allegiant Stadium, right off of the Strip there, and it's a fascinating place if you go there for the first time. I know when I first went to Daytona and drove along the beach and saw all of those hotels, it was the closest that I had seen to the Strip. I say, we got something on the Strip, because behind those hotels is the Atlantic Ocean. Just a beautiful Strip. It's a beautiful scenery. Got a chance to stay in a hotel on the ocean there in Daytona last week before last, whenever it was, I was on the road. But the Las Vegas Strip, it is undeniably a unique entity of its own. You could say possibly imitated, but never duplicated. Las Vegas Strip is number 7 on our list of the top 10 tourist attractions in America. I'm going to slow it down a little bit. We're going to talk to you about some of the upcoming dialogues. I owe you one on the 40th year history, the 40 years of Miami Vice, the TV series. They just celebrated 40 years down on South Beach. South Beach, wow. Miami Vice helped to make South Beach. South Beach was just a place that they called the south end of Miami on the beach. And it got the name, and they would go in, and I'm going to talk about that in a few weeks, but they were going in the buildings that they were going to film in. They painted all of the neon decor. And so 40 years later, South Beach is one of the top tourist attractions. It's not on our list, and I don't know, we got to talk the time out, because all you got to do is be down here doing spring break or the early summer. Heck, you can go down there tonight, any holiday, and you're not going to find too many more people concentrated that you're going to find down there on South Beach. But we're going to do a show on Miami Vice, celebrating its 40th anniversary. I was out of the city. I really, even though their attractions were pretty pricey, you had the opportunity to eat dinner, to go down and meet with some of the stars of, I know, Lieutenant Castillo, James Edward Olmos was here, Trudy. I won't call you the name. Maybe I'll watch the show. I'll tell you the name they called her in one episode of the show. Trudy. I cannot think. She was here, as was Gina Cabrizi. She was here also, and I think Stan was here. I'm not going to butcher his last name, but so Miami Vice is one of the shows. Hey, while you're on Facebook, hit like for the Dialogues page. If you're looking at us on YouTube, subscribe, please, so that anything that goes on with Dialogue with Dozell, you're going to be the first to know. Okay, we're going to move on. So what we'll do is probably between everyone, we'll kind of talk about an upcoming show to whet your appetite. Thank you for hopping on tonight. We appreciate your making the Dialogue what it is, because it couldn't be what it is without you. And of course, you can always go back and look at the catalog of Dialogue with Dozell. We have the label on them, and look at them and see which ones you would like to dive through, edit through them, watch them, and give us feedback. We appreciate your feedback so we can make this a good show for you. The number 6 tourist attraction in the United States of America, as listed by Time Out magazine, is Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore. So Mount Rushmore is actually located in Keystone, South Dakota. You see Presidents Washington, Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln displayed on what is one of the most fascinating artist exercises of artistry in all of the world. They were carved out, and dynamite was used. They helped to carve out these images of these people. 90% of them was done with the use of dynamite, and it took more than 400 men to construct this fascinating site from 1927 to 1941, when it was finally completed. And you get to learn so much about the history of the presidency and the history of America by Mount Rushmore has a welcome station that you go through and you look at the video on the construction of it, the history of the actual landmark, but the history of the presidents who were on there and history of the presidency. And it's just a fascinating site. I wish Madam Producer would weigh in with me. When we went there, we actually saw a man with the leopard walking on a leash. And the leopard was a little fella, but he was walking. And as we were walking, and of course we had driven, so anything that kind of woke us up or something like that was welcome during that time. And we remember one person saying, "That's sick." And we all got our laugh on about that. But that's Mount Rushmore. You really want to see it. It's in Keystone, South Dakota. One of the real landmarks of the Dakotas. At the end of the show, we're going to look at the regions of our country to see where some of these, to see which regions had the most tourist attractions, which had the most honorable mentions, and which states, those kinds of things. But Mount Rushmore puts the Dakotas on the map as far as tourist attractions. Also, another tourist attraction there in South Dakota is Sturgis, South Dakota. Now, when I was a policeman, Daytona Beach had the second largest motorcycle week, and we celebrated ours over in February. Well, Sturgis, South Dakota is the largest one, motorcycle week, and they celebrate that over in August. And we happen to have been there during motorcycle week, right off from the Dakotas. Let me tell you another fascinating experience we had when we were there. Of course, our children were but young. Young man who loans me this name for this show, Dozell, was probably 9 or 10 years old at the time. And we were walking to review one of the hotels. I booked 3 hotels in every city to see which one we had a fallback and we didn't like one or the other. And we were going in, and lo and behold, we see the 3 guys. I don't know if you all are around from the 80s and remember ZZ Top. She's got legs and she knows how to. Okay, so the ZZ Top, and we saw the guy getting off the bus, and I said, "Dozy, that's ZZ Top." Madam Producer and I used to sit up on Friday nights. Those was before there was MTV and you saw music videos, which was an oncoming genre. You got to see them on Friday nights. A couple of networks had their shows, and she would sit up with me, and we look at them. And ZZ Top was very popular because in those days they had that red car. But in one of their videos, the car got destroyed, but they had their guitar was transformed into a red spaceship that they traveled around in. That was really awesome. And and so we run into this guy. I say, "That's the guy from ZZ Top." And then before I could resolve that in my mind, I turned to the guy and said, "Sir, aren't you?" He was a skinny guy. You had the 2 guys that played the guitar. You had the skinny guys. They had the long beards. I know everybody since the pandemic is wearing a beard, but they had the beards all along. I said, "Man, aren't y'all ZZ Top?" And he lied to a brother. Wish I could get my Martin face on. We lied to a brother like that, man. He lied. And so as soon as he lied, we kept walking towards the hotel. We turned back and looked at the bus, and in the bus was an inscription painted on the side that said Mount Rushmore. And they had the 3 guys from ZZ Top painted across a mountain scene that simulated Mount Rushmore. And of course, when we did our business at the hotel, our due diligence, whatever, and got back in the van, we turned the radio on, and it's talking about ZZ Top appearing at a motorcycle rally that the next night there in Sturgis. So it was so exciting. And then we went back. We didn't go back and call him off the line. We could have. We should have. We let him slide. The number 6 most visited tourist attraction in the whole United States of America is what is it? It's Mount Rushmore. I was getting mixed up because I got caught up on saying Mount Rushmore and Mount Rushmore and Mount Rockmore is what they call it. Mount Rockmore is what they call. That's what they had painted on, and I guess that was the name of the tour that ZZ Top was on. We're going to come right back with the top 5 tourist attractions here in the United States of America after this break. GoGigaWorld.com. They got all of your virtual needs. They got your web building needs. Hey, Toya and Makia and team, they got you covered. GoGigaWorld.com. You see the fascinating production they do here. If you look at our church services on Sundays, they cover our Bible study. They do all of that. You saw the list of stars that appeared on that commercial. We're going to give you an updated commercial in the next upcoming weeks, a month or so. But GoGigaWorld.com. Go there, contact them, let them give you an estimate. Ask them, and they'll tailor make your show. They have a network of us that are part of their network. They're on GoGigaWorld.com. Glad to be a part of the team. GoGigaWorld.com. Let them make you look good, okay? All right. So, are you serious? I'm not at this point gonna do a whole show dealing with the clownery, the buffoonery of one of these presidential candidates and some other candidates. But we would not be living up to our journalistic expectations if we didn't call out some things that need to be called out as they need to be called out. So right now we're gonna call out 45, y'all's hero. And I want to ask the question again. Are you serious? This guy right here, Orange, well, we're not going to call him Orange Hitler, but the Orange Clown. Let's just call him that. And I hate to refer to a man who campaigned and did everything to be elected to the presidency with some respect for the office. But did you see him this last weekend? Are you serious? Can you believe the things he said? He said that President Biden is a mental case, and he attributed it to his age. He attributed his mental case, his mental status to his age. But how about him calling Kamala Harris, kept calling her Kamala Harris, and that's what they do. That's what he does because that's how he is. That's what he does. He kept referring to her, and he said that she was deranged at birth without any kind of medical science, without hearing any documentation. He just came to that conclusion. Hey, Orange Man, are you serious? Do you listen to yourself? Do you ever go back and look at your productions, at your rallies, and see what comes out of your mouth? I know you're a supreme narcissist, but do you go back to look to see just how crazy you sound? At least Biden has some years over you, and you did bring out that he has had some cerebral surgeries to remove some tumors. Thank God he made that through, and he's a living testimony to many of us that you can overcome that dreaded illness. But are you serious, Donald Trump? Gosh, I call his name. Are you serious to call anybody of being mental? Now, who I really want to call out here is not him, because we know he has issues. We know he is, touched, as they would say. But America, for that 46 to 47% of the voting bloc who who's already determined in your primary season that it was going to be him, and you had some decent candidates, Nikki Haley, one to throw in that category. Not this clown here in Florida, but are you serious? You support a man like that says this kind of crazy stuff? He even said, in dark moments, and I almost hate to repeat these, he says that America needs 24 hours to let law enforcement have their way, kill, shoot looters, shoot shoplifters. And last I heard, shoplifting, unless it was a $100 item or more, was a misdemeanor. He said, let them have 24 hours. He said, there are going to be some mistakes, but let them have 24 hours to wreak havoc on America. This is just a few years after we saw George Floyd and others murdered by law enforcement. This guy says, let law enforcement have their way and it'll cut down crime. Are you serious? Well, we know you're deranged, but we're talking about the people who support you. Hey, are y'all serious? You may not be in love with his opponent. I'm sure Dick Cheney and his daughter and many other Republicans who crossed over in his endorsements, Mrs. Harris. I'm sure they were not their top choices. They didn't love her stand on a lot of things, but they said when they looked at the choices, the two choices, and they came to the conclusion, there's no way we can support this. America, 47%. Are you serious? Let's move on from here. I'm just a little journalistic integrity. We cannot let some of this stuff go by. Unfortunately, what have you done for me lately? Ms. Jackson, if you're nasty, are you serious? The stuff you said, you know what? We're going to give you a pass. We're going to give you a pass. We're going to give you a pass. We heard some of the public relations induced apologies that you've made, and we understand that it kept you from looking really buffoonerish yourself. So we're going to give you a pass. Ms. Jackson, we love you and appreciate you. Dialogue with Dozell. Back to the countdown. So we're not going to do a whole show every night. We do have to go back and look at and before the end of the show, Madam Producer, before we do have another dedication tonight. Before we do that dedication, we're going to talk about the election, and we're going to say something about the election every show leading up to the election, and we're going to do a show on Project 2025 when the expert Miss L.A. Witness, who was with us a few weeks ago, she's going to come back and do a deep dive in that, and we'll update you on campaign things. But we'll throw campaign themes in every show, but we're going to do shows that are not spending a whole hour dealing with the election or the electoral process, but we are going to talk about issues of it. Number 5, the number 5 tourist attraction in the United States of America, as determined by the website Time Out, is Yellowstone Park. Yellowstone Park, it has another name of Old Faithful in Wyoming, Yellowstone, Wyoming. Now, one of the things that has made Montana, which butts up against Wyoming, which has made it put it kind of like on the map, is the television program Yellowstone. Is it Yellowstone? Did I get that right? Yeah, my brother turned us on to that, and we couldn't get enough of it. And of course, they messed up and not gotten along, and so it's closing down. But we have enjoyed looking at that series. So Yellowstone National Park is, and I'll tell you a story about that. And there's a they call it Old Faithful. There's a geyser. You see that geyser, that water popping up, and they say that approximately every 74 minutes it pops up on its own, piping up 37,000 gallons of hot water that comes out of the earth. We went to the actual park, and we smelt that sulfur water, and we're not so overly fascinated because that cost us a day of some stuff we were going to do in that Montana region. That was in trip we took over there in 1994, but it was great just to pass that. And right in that region, just between I think it's the west side of the Dakotas is the Badlands, and that was a beautiful sight. as you headed out. But Yellowstone National Park is the number 5 tourist attraction, and it is a fascinating place to visit in the United States of America. Madam Producer, you remember that little trip you took there, Yellowstone Park? One of the little drive you took, Yellowstone Park, which is surrounded. You gain access to various parts of the park via mountains. And you know, when you travel the mountains, you go around and around, and get to the top, and go back down. Well, those mountains are 2 lanes, and I promise you, you may have this much room to play with. Some of us went to sleep while the drivers drove on that trip going down that mountain, hoping that we will all be intact when we got to the other end of it. I just say it like that, and thank God that was 94. We did make it, but so 94 was that 40 years ago, 30 years ago? I forget being arithmetic. 25 years ago, I don't know. Anyway, we did it. Yellowstone National Park, the number 5 tourist attraction here in the United States of America. The number 4 tourist attraction, as determined by the website Time Out, New York City's very own, the Statue of Liberty. Oh, Lady Liberty, yes, all of Her Majesty, a gift from France, and it's become the symbol of freedom here in America, and some of America's highest virtues and values. It's 150 feet tall. It's a copper monument, and you see it rather by boat, or you can get close to it in the park, or there's an actual park that simulates Ellis Island, where our immigrants came into America. That was before immigration became a dark thing, as being portrayed here in America now. And so we saw it by boat one night. It was very fascinating, to travel out in the harbor and see it. And then my dear wife and I saw it 2017, 2018. We saw it again. We got close to it, and we walked as close as you could actually get to it. We've never been up into it. Maybe that's something to aspire to. But the Statue of Liberty, that majestic gift from France, is the number 4 tourist attraction here in the United States of America. Tell us what you think. Hit us up in the comments on YouTube and Facebook. Tell us what you think about these tourist attractions and the tourist attractions here in the USA. Now, remember, Time Out selected the top 23. We are taking the top 10 and chronicling them here on tonight's show. And then at the end of when we look at number 1, we're going to go back, and we would have picked 5 of the remaining 13, because they picked 23, and we're going to pick 5 and make them honorable mentions and talk about them. Let's go to the number 3 tourist attraction, as selected by the website Time Out. The number 3 tourist attraction, and it's free in the United States of America, is the French Quarter in New Orleans. It's Bourbon Street. There you see it, Bourbon Street. Bourbon Street is one of the things that makes New Orleans a great tourist attraction that it is. And any convention, everything that they do, of course, Bourbon Street is the centerpiece of it. That's where you go down. My partner in crime on the show, my brother Kim, and I went out to the NBA All-Star Game, 2009, I think it was. And it was when things were just trying to come back after Hurricane Katrina had been through there. And we got a chance to go there. And of course, for the 3 nights we were there, Bourbon Street was a centerpiece to go through. You saw all the NBA players, you saw celebrities, you saw movie stars, you saw singers. And then, of course, it gets an annual profile during the Essence Festival. And you see Bourbon Street is just highly chronicled and highly populated, and gets a lot of attention anytime. They call it the French Quarter. Anytime you're there in New Orleans, it is the place to see. It is where you get the best. I'm kind of, but they say it's the best seafood. The boy don't eat a whole lot of seafood, but it's the best seafood, and it has real authentic Cajun grub. And there's a lot of other stuff, jazz and all of those things. It's nothing like being on Bourbon Street and seeing one of those original jazz bands come marching down very slowly, blowing those brass horns and so forth. Bourbon Street is the #3 tourist attraction in the United States of America. It's free. Go to Bourbon Street, enjoy the food, the cuisine, and guess what? I do know: the food is not overly crazily priced. So you want to make that a part. It's got all of the stores and all of those attractions that visit Bourbon Street, the #3 tourist attraction in the United States of America. The #2 tourist attraction, as selected by Time Out the website, is located in New York State, between the state of New York and Canada, and that would be the Niagara Falls. The Niagara Falls, one of the most fascinating natural beauty attractions in all of the world. I'd have to check this to confirm it, but I believe that the Niagara Falls is one of the 8 wonders of the world. We have a picture that's almost like a postcard. We went to the falls in 1996, I think it was. We did a trip to the Northeast and we did the falls, and we actually didn't have a camera, so we came back and did the falls after visiting Canada. You see one section of the falls that's straight. There's a horseshoe version of the falls, and that's just natural. I'd heard my mother talk about visiting there as a young lady, I think when she was in college, maybe with some college friends or family, and she talked about putting on the umbrella, putting on the raincoat and all, and you could see the boat that they require you to ride through. But we got to see it up close and personal, and we saw it, took our own pictures and made our own. The Niagara Falls, just a natural, absolute beauty. You cannot go to the very picturesque in its own right, upstate New York, and not venture over to the falls. The falls, again, is bordered between, it's on upstate New York. It's between New York and Canada, around Buffalo and Rochester, that area of the state of New York, upstate. And what a beautiful, beautiful site. I think it's a little bit further west. It was a long time since we took that trip. The Niagara Falls, the #2 tourist attraction in all of America, as determined by Time Out magazine. Now, I don't have a drum roll. I can't do it with my tongue. I can't do it with fingers. We're going to get to #2 in a second. Let me tell you a little bit more about Go Giga, Go Giga Creations. You gotta go to their site, More Go Giga. You gotta go there. Let them do your virtual stuff for you. They'll make you look good. They'll market you. They'll help you with your web building. You see the stars you saw. I'm not gonna call names, but you saw them, and they'll help you. They will really help get your brand, your product out there. And I know the pandemic's over. We're not doing everything virtual, but virtual is here to stay. And programming and stuff like that, content creating and those kinds of things. They have a marketing genius in Miss Markia. They will help you get things, really get things off the ground. Hey, I just got word from my brother Anthony, who is a baseball savant. He just told us that we just lost Pete Rose, and we'll talk about him more next week. And that's kind of sad because of Pete's plight with Major League Baseball. But the Niagara Falls. So let's count down the top 10 places, the top 9 that in this United States that Time Out the website says that you want to see. The number 10, Walt Disney World, Orlando, Florida. I can't believe that's just number 10. Number 9, the Grand Canyons in Arizona. Number 8, the Smithsonian Museums there in Washington, D.C., that conglomerate of museums. Number 8, the Las Vegas Strip. Number 7 is the Las Vegas Strip. Number 6, Mount Rushmore, not to be confused with ZZ Top's Mount Rockmore, Mount Rushmore, where the faces of the presidents appear. Number 5, holding up the halfway point is Yellowstone Park in Arizona. Number 4, Lady Liberty herself, the Statue of Liberty. Number 3, the third most visited attraction, as recorded in August of 2024, is the French Quarters, Bourbon Street in New Orleans. Number 2, the Niagara Falls in the state of New York and the lower part of Canada. The number 1 most visited attraction, the top tourist attraction in all of the United States of America, is the Washington National Mall. That's probably going to be surprising to you. The National Mall. Now, the mall comprises several locations. One end of it, you have the Lincoln Memorial. That's where Martin Luther King and many others since then have given their speeches. The famous I Have a Dream speech was there. You can see the view that he had and everybody else who was giving speeches from there. The other end of the mall goes out to where you actually see the Washington Monument. You see that nice pond, I know it's got to be a name for it. Somebody can help me with the name of it. They have all of these memorials. They have the Jefferson Memorial. Of course, the Lincoln Memorial is there. They have the newly done Martin Luther King Memorial. They have the Vietnam Memorial. All of those memorials are part of the National Mall there in Washington, D.C. that makes up the number 1 tourist attraction in America. Shout out to my cousin Jan, who does this dialogue with me sometime. We actually went to the mall, my brothers and my mother and I, with our father, and I think it was 2012. He was honored as one of the Mumford Point Marines. He's one of the Mumford Point Marines. Those are the first Black Marines. In fact, it was President Obama was supposed to give them the Congressional Medal of Honor, and it was the first victory for Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. And so while he was being honored, our cousin who was residing in D.C., she had done most of her adult career there in the district, drove us around and put us off in locations so that we could go to a lot of these attractions. We've been to everything basically on the National Mall. I've been there with my family several times. But we went there as brothers, as we call us. We are the V3, and we went there and saw all of those attractions, and Jan helped make that happen. The National Mall is the number 1 tourist attraction in all of America. The National Mall, the Washington Mall, the Washington National Mall. Now, here's a group that we have. So, Time Out, the website selected 23 of the top tourist attractions here in America. We looked at the top 10, and we didn't alter their list. We just presented them as they had given them to us. But what we're going to do now is we're going to look at, so there were 13 more that because they presented 23. We're going to look at what we picked, that the staff of the dialogue came up with 5 honorable mentions. There were 5 honorable mentions, and we're going to look at them and throw them in and see what you think about these 5 that didn't make it to the top 10. And let's see how we're doing this, Madam Producer. Are we looking at them individually, or are we looking at them all at once? However you want to display them, we'll go at them and we'll talk a little bit about these what we call honorable mentions. There, that's the first one. That is the Hoover Dam. That's the Hoover Dam right out of Las Vegas, Nevada. And the Hoover Dam is, you cannot go in and not see that energy generating dam. And it is an amazing sight there in the desert, right outside of it. Well, not right outside, but reasonable proportion outside of the city of Las Vegas there in Nevada. The next one is the next honorable mention, and we're not giving them a number. We're just going to give you 5 out of the remaining 13 that we call honorable mention. The next one is the St. Louis Arch, or the Arch as they call it. It symbolizes what bridges America's east from the west, and it's there in St. Louis. Now, my old claustrophobic self rode up in that thing with my family somewhere in the 90s when we were doing a whole lot of traveling as a family. I think around 97, I think. That is one of the most, that's one of the top 23 most visited places in the United States, as chronicled by Time Out, the website, in August of this year. The next one is, and it's an absolute beauty. It's gorgeous. It's the Golden Gate Bridge. Northern California has many attractions, Napa Valley and all of those things, but who could go there and not look at the Golden Gate Bridge? And after going over those bridges in Jacksonville and hearing so much about the Golden Gate Bridge, you thought, man, it's got to be some big fascinating. It's not that big, and it's not really that long, but it's the Golden Gate Bridge, and it bears being listed as one of the honorable mentions by the Dialogue as one of the top tourist attractions here in America. Now, right off from the Golden Gate Bridge, and it was also listed, we're not going to show, we don't have a picture of it, is Alcatraz, the prison where Al Capone and many other national national criminals, gangsters. Al Capone actually died in Alcatraz. Alcatraz, the federal prison, is actually an island in itself there in the San Francisco Bay. And it's right there. You can see it easily from the Golden Gate Bridge. Madam Producer, if you would only come on right now and tell about your little foray as we were traveling along and could see the bay and see Alcatraz, but we won't go there tonight. Thank you anyway. The next one is the Seattle, the Space Needle. The Space Needle. The Seattle Space Needle, yes. It looks tall. It's really not that tall, but it still gives you a vintage vantage point of one of the prettiest cities in America, that's Seattle, Washington. The Seattle, the Space Needle, and it's a sight to see. And of course, the number 5 one is the Kennedy Space Center, right up the road in Central Florida. Eastern Central Florida, the Kennedy Space Center. That's one of the duplicate of one of the space challengers. I think one of the space rockets that was sent. The Kennedy Space Center. Now, what do we do with this list? We got to hear you tell us whether it's credible or not. You need to tell us whether this list is credible, whether you agree with it. If you're not looking at the show live and you go back and look at the show, weigh in on this. Let us know what you think about this list. This is Time Out, the website, and we did, the staff of the Dialogue did look at several lists, and it was one that we really thought was the better ones. And we're a little surprised that the National Mall was the number 1 tourist attraction. But the thing about that is everything on that mall is free. So that has a lot to do, parking, lodging, those kinds of things. And you go to the District of Columbia, and you stay in one of those in Virginia or in Maryland, you hop on the Bright Line or one of those trains, and it'll take you in. You can do all your sightseeing and get out of there, and not have to worry about parking, because parking is a premium. That's why we so much appreciated Jan getting us around while we were there back in 2012. Let's see. Let's talk about some of the regions. The Northeast had its share of attraction, of course. New York City, Washington D.C., even the Niagara Falls would be considered the Northeast. The Midwest, you look up top, you see Mount Rushmore. That's one of the more visited attractions. Beale Street in Memphis is kind of surprising that it didn't come up. Of course, when you come down south, you got Disney, you got Bourbon Street, you got the Kennedy Space Center, which was not the top 10, but you got all those beautiful beaches here in Florida. Oh my gosh. South Beach, where you at? We're gonna have to get on them. So we'll do use South Beach when we talk about when we do the tribute to Miami Vice, the TV show. Also in Texas, the Johnson Space Center could have been something that was featured. The Southwest, of course, you got the Grand Canyons and everything around that. Southern California did not get a whole lot of love in this list. Didn't talk about Disneyland, because everything there in Central Florida, in the Orlando area, it was birthed first out there in Southern California. Disneyland, Disney World. You had Marineland of the Pacific. You got Marineland, which was one of the second world's to come up here in Central Florida. So, but just so you know, you got Hollywood and all of that stuff, but they were not in any of our lists. I saw them in some lists. Northern California, you got your love. We didn't do Napa Valley, but you got the Golden Gate Bridge, and you got Alcatraz, and of course the Great Northwest, the Seattle Space Needle. We could have talked about the rose petals and the beautiful redwood forest that extends up into Portland, Oregon, and the Oregon region. But we'll leave that for another list at another time. Hey, this list won't be fun. Doing this show won't be fun unless you weigh in and tell us what you thought of Time Out magazines. Go online, look at Time Out magazine. If you are looking to go to these attractions or other attractions, they do a great job of chronicling. We gave you the Cliff Notes version description. They'll go much more deeper in depth and talking about these attractions. Of course, Wikipedia is always a resource for you to check through. Not bragging, because everything we are and have done is by the grace of God. We have been blessed to see all of these sites, so we can weigh in personally and say, yeah, this is legitimately should be in the top 10. Yeah, this is legitimately an honorable mention. That's how we could pick 5 out of the remaining 13 from Time Out, the website's listing. We hope you've enjoyed this show. It's been so much fun doing it. It was so much fun preparing it. Anytime you talk about going, getting away, visiting, looking at attractions, it's always fun. Dialogue with Dozell, you got to check this one out. Refer your friends to go back and look at this one. America's top 10 tourist attractions. Now, sadly, we want to end tonight's show. You've already heard us talk about, thanks to my brother Anthony, we learned that Pete Rose left us, and we'll do him next week. This continues, unfortunately, a string of about 5 straight weeks that we have that the dialogue has dedicated the show to someone who has gone on. Of course, we know we have a perspective on losing people. We don't lose them; they go. We believe our faith. My faith says that they go to be with the good Lord who brought them here. But the human side of us hates to say goodbye. So tonight we continue what has been unfortunately 4 or 5 straight nights, 5 shows. We dedicate tonight's show to the memory of Dikembe Mutombo, who left us today. Dikembe was an African brother who played center and joined that long list of centers on the basketball court that the great John Thompson helped to produce. And make up a defensive stalwart. Most of his career was spent with the Atlanta Hawks, and you see Dikembe as he in his retirement version. But we had to wave that finger because Dikembe would block your shot, and that was his way of saying, "Don't bring that junk in here. You know better than this." He would wave that finger, and that's the picture we choose to use with him tonight. Dikembe went on in retirement and did so much for his native Sudan, his native Africa. I don't want to mess up the exact region. He did so much, as many of our brothers that came over and sisters who have made it in this country after coming here from Africa, and as has Akon and others, and done stuff with getting clean waters and those kinds of things. He did so much to contribute, and he was such a great spirit and great joy, such a great joy. Not only was he a multi-winner of Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA, Dikembe Mutombo, man, thank you for coming our way. Your spirit will always live with us. Whenever we see that finger winking, we know that means don't come this way with that jive. Dialogue with Dozell. We're going to see you next week. We owe you a Miami Vice show. We owe you a show that talks seriously about homelessness in the world. We got a chance to see it abroad last year. We're going to talk about homelessness on a serious note. We're going to talk about seniors in Florida who now have to pay, who have to mandatorily fund the reserves, who live in condos. We're going to bring in a state senator and a local attorney who's done a whole lot. Believe it or not, this governor has tried to stand up for seniors who are going to hurt the most. Dialogue with Dozell. We're going to see you next week. Same time, same bat stations. Dialogue with Dozy. Go Giga. We love you.